So this morning, I'm very excited to be speaking with Julie Quist of the Child Protection League, who will be with us in Rochester next week on the 15th of April here at Zumbro Community Church in the Rochester, Minnesota area. And Julie Quist is no stranger to the area. She's been here, spoken to massive crowds of people. One of the things I like about your presentations, Julie, is that you always provide footnotes, endnotes, you provide documentation, you let people know about the specific bill numbers, and you fill people in on the philosophical underpinnings of what the leftists are trying to do in the public schools generally. What are you going to speak to us about next week when you're actually here live in person?
Okay, well, thank you, Wes, for having me on again. And I just wanted to focus, I think, on the bigger picture. What we're dealing with. I mean, we have all these individual issues that come our way. There's a critical race theory / equities / white supremacy indoctrination, which is a really big deal. We have comprehensive sex education, which is a really big deal, and it has consequences that we are seeing in our culture right now. I'd like to talk a little bit about how that impacts what's going on in the greater culture right now, just because of that. We have the social studies standards, which have the next hearing on those is going on right now, and it's being live streamed. But there's been a huge pushback on that, and things like the sentencing guidelines in Minnesota having to do with people who are convicted of distributing, creating child sexual abuse imagery, and it's just material that is incomprehensible to us. And people convicted of that in Minnesota, the record of their being sentenced is abominable. I mean, 85% of these people who are convicted end up on probation instead of actually seeing any prison time. And so all of this is very related. And what we're dealing with is a targeted war on children. And so the question is why and how and where does that come from? And the reality is that it's a targeted war on children because it's a war on America. And we need to, I'd just like to give a little bit of background on how this came up and out and what the background is on that, and then where we are now and some actual things people can do. There are some pieces of legislation right now that people could really make an impact on that have to do with all of these issues. And also there are, there's a lot of talk right now about people getting involved locally in their local school boards, their local city councils, their county commissioners, and then the races and the issues, and getting known and active in your local community. So in the face of all that, there are ways that this information can be helpful for people to actually do that. And sometimes it's hard to know, where do I plug in and what am I supposed to actually be doing? This is all information that is very active, action-oriented, that people can take an action on. But it's important for people to have some background on not just what those issues are, but where it comes from and how all of these individual issues is kind of like whack-a-mole. There's this one over here and there's that one over there and here over there. Boom, 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 and well, actually, they're all the same. It's the same, and we have to understand how they are the same, and so we can decide where we're going to plug in, but we have to understand what the bigger picture is. And here's the other thing: I wanted to let people know that we have a conference coming up where we're going to deal with some of these issues, and I don't mean just like comprehensive sex ed, although we'll do a little bit on that, but on the bigger picture of what we're dealing with. Our keynote speaker is a guy named Alex Newman, and if you search him on the internet, you'll see he's a very well-known international journalist. He has a global reputation, hard-hitting reporting. He's the founder of a number of different organizations and an author having to do with transformational education, which is a big deal. And he is very practical in his approach to things. Here are some options. Here's what you can be doing. It's not just exposing what's evil, which we hear a lot of that. And we sometimes just think, I just don't need to hear one more thing about how this is bad and that's bad. But it's very practical. He's very good that way. And he's our keynoter in the evening. This is April 24th. It's in the metro, but good news for people down further away is that we also have a virtual access to this.
Oh,
so it's
okay.
both in person, which we think in person is really important because you need to network. You need to be able to see the materials and buy some things if you want them and take some information. And there, so that all is real important. But understandably, it's in the northern part of the metro. And so we do have virtual options, and that's all on our website, Child Protection. It's actually cplaction.com. We have a speaker named Kimberly Ells, and she has written a book called The Invincible Family. And that we kind of piggybacked on that title. The title of our conference is Invincible Liberty, because we own our liberty, we claim it, and we need to understand it, and we need to claim it and act it out. She does an incredible job of giving an overview of how these things are layered from the ground all the way up. She's dealt with at the UN, and she knows how these things are driven from that angle. Also, how they are at the local level. And then we have Kersten speaking, who is, really the authority on what's going on with the social studies standards in Minnesota. And she'll deal with the critical race theory and how that's being incorporated into a lot of our state government, not just in education. She's with the Center of the American Experiment. And, so we have as our MC, CC Davis, who is the head of Minnesota Blexit. And that's a pretty neat organization that's active in Minnesota. So it's going to be a pretty neat thing. You can find all the information on cplaction.com. And I just, all the things that I'm going to say will touch on some of those things that will be there at the conference, and I'll approach it from a little different angle than they will. We're going to have a legislative update too at that conference, and that part will be available. We online as well. So I just want you to know that there's a lot going on, and we really need to understand that the people who are operating in a different way, part of this, that we have this unity of purpose, and we have to, in order to have that unity of purpose, we have to understand how it all fits together.
Well, that's brilliant, Julie, because this conference coming up is the timing is really important, really perfect, and we'll provide the links to the website below where people can find more information about how they can register for that conference on the 24th. I myself have to work that Saturday, so I can't make it. I hope maybe I could watch some of the speeches later on if they're made available on the CPL website. We'll see how that happens. I like what you're saying. I like, and we need to remember as activists that success is not just possible, but it is completely attainable. We've had amazing success this year. The superintendent of the Rochester Public Schools has been let go, and he will be leaving as of June. There were data requests made of the Rochester Public Schools as to his involvement with the promotion of the peaceful protests in our community last summer, as well as disseminating information regarding groups such as Black Lives Matter and other sorts of groups in the public schools, using the channels, using official channels to promote political activities. There were also data requests made of his standing on critical race theory. We've had teachers quit. We've had 800 students flee the Rochester Public Schools. Their families are leaving. There are even student teachers who've quit because they refuse to bow down, bend the knee, and salute a political critical race theory. I like what you're saying about how they're deliberately going after children, and that the this whack-a-mole concept that you brought up. It's really the agenda seems chaotic because they spread the field out so far and they pop up here and they pop up there. But essentially the goal is to destroy the family and destroy American exceptionalism and our ability to say all of that nonsense tries to destroy our ability to say that our civilization, what unifies us, is unique and special and worth hanging on to. So indoctrinating the children in that is essential, isn't it?
It's foundational, it's basic. And as we'll go through a little bit of the background, I mean, it was clearly laid out. This is how you go forward with the cultural Marxism, and this is how you bring down America. And it's just been clearly laid out for a long time. The whole concept of transformational education is a Marxist strategy, and it's been in play in the education system since the 70s, and it has got, you know, a deep grip and has had an impact. And you know, people have sort of hands off on the schools. You know, a lot of conservative activists, you know, it's hard to get involved in the schools because the teachers union has such a grip on the school boards. They elect their own, and so I'm excited about what you're doing there in Rochester. That's very exciting, and you know, you need to talk about that.
It's funny, like you're saying, there's limited access for people when you attend one of their meetings, which aren't, everything's online, of course, nothing's in person, but when they get to the real meat and potatoes of any given topic, they go into private session and they all turn off the stream. So you can't, of course, watch what's being said about these things behind closed doors, but people keep banging on the doors to ask what's going on and who's in there. So yeah, but thank you for tying in the piece about the legislation too. People do want to know whom they can contact and how they can get involved. And as you mentioned, that website of the group will have all of the links so that you can find out who your representative is, who your state rep or your state senator is, if you don't already know. And there's also a way to reach out to the Child Protection League if you wish to have a guest speaker in your community. So local activists, there's a number you can call. There's a phone number. I don't know if we want to say that in this particular broadcast, but there is an 888 number you can call. And if you reach out on back channels to either myself or Julie Quist or one of the other activists, or contact the state organization of the Child Protection League, you can find out how you can bring an exciting motivational speaker to your community.
Right, and that is on our website too, so you can just find it there, contact us. You know, I can give you the number, but then they have to write it down. It'd be easier if they can just go check it out. So
check it out. Yeah, get involved. Well, is there anything on a final note? I'll let you have the final word, and then we'll say goodnight.
Okay, well, there is a lot of activity that could be done in the legislature. And I think people, you know, the legislators sometimes need a little bit of motivation that comes from their constituents that's saying, you need to get involved in this. Why don't you author this? And why don't you just encourage the chair to have a hearing on this? Because somehow or another, it's not being heard. And that makes a big difference, makes a huge difference.
We saw that play out here, didn't we, before? But you know, seriously, people, pick up the phone and dial a phone number. How hard is that? If you're in lockdown anyway, as all of the teachers and educators have been in lockdown for the last year, and they certainly haven't been silent on the message boards and the chat rooms. They've been politicking all over the Facebook pages for the local television and radio stations. Just pick up the phone, call your legislator, and ask some questions. Ask 2 or 3 good questions, and that's all you're being asked to do. Yeah.
Very good.
So we'll see you next week on the 15th. And Julie, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye-bye.